and I couldn't put my finger on it because there was nothing on the radio, nothing was playing on my phone. Like I was so sure. I, I, I didn't know where it was coming from. I even got out of my car because I thought maybe something's wrong with my car.
Yes, and many children see them too. About 75% of the world's children today are being born with etheric vision. And when your children talk with people and have daydream playmates, the chances are they are actually speaking to some of these people. Because these angels or angelic forces or nature spirits, as they're often called, will often make themselves seen.
And all of a sudden I hear him go, whoa, or, something like that. So I look up. And as I look up, I see this thing.
And I said, I've never seen a butterfly like you before.
I know that the paranormal is real. Listen.
As soon as I spoke to it, it turns around and makes eye contact with me. And then it stands upright.
And it was at that moment that I saw it was like an orange light appear above this row of trees. And from this sort of orange light, this thing appeared. Its wings were actually like sycamore leaf shaped.
And I started talking to them. I'm like, hi, are y'all the dwarves? And I would hear whispers that would say, hi, yeah, you want to play? And it wasn't just my imagination. And I had told them, I'm like, my dwarves, they like beer, And my dad's like, yeah, sure, your dwarves like beer. And they were holding a conversation, and his beer slid upwards instead of downwards, how the house was tilted. And him and my brothers jumped up.
So I stopped calling out Adam, and I'm just kind of, my mind draws a blank, and I stop behind that tree stump. I'm pretty close to it now because I took a few steps forward, and I see this thing.
Okay, well, as we're talking about dancing and we move towards stories around Fae music, I'll hand the mic back over where it belongs here to you, the guest, and ask that you just carry on if you'd be so kind.
So, after the frog experience and just events in my life growing up, and admittedly I couldn't really connect with Florida like I can connect here with Colorado, that side of myself ended up getting locked away. And just between so many life events and whatnot, it's like, all right, it just kind of fell away amongst other things. And I lost touch with that side of myself up until about 5 months ago. 5 months ago, I had my first mushroom trip. And that was kind of like the key to the box that unlocked that side of myself. And I was like, oh, there's so much that I don't know, or I do know, but I don't remember. And after that first mushroom trip, the mushrooms were like, all right, you have to grow us now. And I was like, okay. And I also got this vague idea that I was going to be moving to Colorado. I hadn't known yet because I thought I was going to be moving in with some roommates, actually, in Florida. But I was going through a really rough time. And that helped me grow a lot as a person. And that rough time ended up prompting me to be like, I need a change of scenery. I need to go to Colorado with my dad and just find myself And so 4 months ago is when I ended up moving. And it's funny because a month before that, on that mushroom trip, I didn't know I was moving to Colorado, but I had gotten the vague idea. And so coming out to Colorado, that's when once I kind of got on my feet, I was like, all right, let me start growing. Let me start doing all this personal growth because I've been through a lot and I need to process everything. And I think just between all of these things coming out to Colorado, I really think Colorado's fairylands. Everywhere I go, I see them. And starting to grow mushrooms because mushrooms have a very deep connection with the Fae. If you go into fairy rings, which I still haven't seen one yet, but um, they do have a connection there. And just working on myself and finding myself after 22 years of living in Florida and not being able to connect with that side of myself. I think that's what really led up to this experience with this first experience with the Fae, because I've always, ever since touching into the side of myself, I felt a kinship with them. I was like, the Fae are kind of awesome. I want to interact with them, but I don't know how to go about it. And so I just did what I do. And I think they saw it, and that's leads into this experience. I live up out in the middle of nowhere on a mountain on what is essentially virgin land. We're building our house, and it's a forested area, and it's very nice. And I was on my way home up the trail, and towards the end of the drive home, um, I started hearing this very strange music, and I couldn't put my finger on it because there was nothing on the radio, nothing was playing on my phone. Like I was so sure. I didn't know where it was coming from. I even got out of my car because I thought maybe something's wrong with my car. But even when I got out of my car, I still heard that music playing, and just listening to that, I was like, this is so strange. This I've never heard music like this before. And the only way that I can describe it is whatever was playing sounded like the idea of an instrument. Like it wasn't any one specific instrument. It wasn't a guitar or a drum or a piano, but it sounded like just the core concept of an instrument playing. And if you were listening to it, you could be like, well, that kind of sounds like a guitar, but no, not really. Or it sounds like this or that, but I just couldn't place it. And when I finally got home and I got to lay down in my cot, because I'm staying in a tent right now while we build the house, I laid down in my cot and I was just listening to that music, and it was so wonderful, and I felt so happy listening to it. And this is eventually when the Fae actually talked to me, and they were like, they said, come and dance with us. Come and dance and play with us. We're so glad you're here. We're so glad you're back. And I was like, wait, what was that? And yeah, welcome back. Please come dance. We're so excited to see you. And sorry, there's this car honking. What the fuck? All right then.
I don't think that's accidental.
I don't think so either. This has been one. Yeah.
I got fully hit with goosebumps when you said that welcome back, and that's pretty much this 1 second afterward is when that horn went off like that.
Yeah. Wow. But yeah, they were, and I just felt this immediate sense of family and homecoming, and I was so happy. And this is, I didn't really get to see them because I was, it was nighttime, and I was laying down for getting ready for bed. I was like, I'd love to come and dance. There's nothing more that I want to do right now, but maybe some other time. I'm sorry. And they were all like, "Aw, come on." And after a little bit being a little firmer, they were like, "Okay, fine." And then they kept playing their music for me until I drifted to sleep. And I think the music, I think it really fit the fact that it was night. It kind of sounded like a night song, but it was Fae music, and so it was very energetic. It was calm and energetic at the same time, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense. Also, in the last few moments of your dialogue, the owl has started to hoot out.
Ooh.
There it is right now. It's the third time as I was just talking about it. Interesting. There's a lot going on tonight talking with you here.
Yes.
The cats playing around, the people with no faces, the person with no faces who turned into two French girls, I'm going to call it, and now the owl on top of everything.
And the horn honking too.
That horn honking right on cue with the goosebump flush from Welcome Back.
Mm-hmm.
May I say a few things about what you've just told me and ask some questions as well?
Absolutely.
Can you hear that owl or no? Probably not. I do have a piece of
I
foam
can.
over my mic. And so I'm going to see in post if I can capture it in the background. It looks like I can see a tiny little wave of it. I'll amplify it and see if I can get him or her on audio here for the record.
That'd be awesome.
It's definitely happening for those listening that can't hear it like I can. I do have my door open tonight, which is very unusual for me for recording. I will also add, almost never do that. I think I've only ever done it once because I live by the waterfall and it creates background noise. So it is no coincidence that guy came to the door tonight, because I don't usually have my door open and otherwise would not. It's just so hot today. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Hot where I am, cold where you are.
Yes. This is a very interesting night.
Truly. Freeform association aside, you haven't listened far enough into the catalog to know that you're in really welcome company here, because we talk about mushrooms on the Fascinating Fae Show pretty often. Mm-hmm. I actually do think, and I'll share with you a little bit more about myself to qualify this. I did own and operate cannabis dispensaries here in Canada, and I've sold like a lot of marijuana, and I have had access to high quality psilocybin mushrooms for basically since I was a teenager, because I'm up here in BC where that stuff is all about it. And I think that when a person consumes psilocybin mushrooms, unlike other drugs, and this is a really important distinction that I continuously try to make on the show, and I'll make here again, so sorry for doing a PSA during your show.
No, you're good.
I just think it's important because, I'm the one with the statistics and the back end on this show, and I do know that younger audience members do listen. A healthy number of them in the 18 to 25 range, for example, show up on my analytics.
I'm 22 myself, so.
There you go. So yeah, and so I just and I'm 45, and I've made mistakes in my drug use journey in my life. Most commonly too much.
Hmm.
Just you can't untake the pill, so I just recommend breaking it into 10 parts or dusting it up and just dipping your
Yeah.
finger into the bag and see how you feel hour by hour with another little dip in if you're going to do a synthetic drug. But this same message, which I'm trying to hover around, is really true of mushrooms as well. Although I do want to make the distinction. Mushrooms are very safe from a internal systems perspective. Hallucinogenics are dangerous. Mind altering substances are dangerous, and they are very dangerous in the wrong setting, such as behind the wheel of a motor vehicle, walking around an urban street unsupervised. I could name 101 things you do not want to be doing adjacent to your mushroom use or other drug use. And as a routine cannabis smoker and occasional microdoser these days, unfortunately with my back so screwed up, I can't really take a proper dose because it's too much for me to feel,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But microdosing is very helpful, and I think does give a window into some of the things I want to talk about that you've brought up. So just to put a nice circling of the wagons, to use a Colorado phrase, around this point, hey kids, it's your brain. Be gentle with it. Take it slow, real slow, gentle, slow and easy. You can always take more. It's really hard to take less. And as they say, the dose makes the poison. So
I 100% agree with you.
try to be gentle as we explore what is truly going on here. And so with that PSA aside, let's talk mushrooms a little bit more energetically for a second. I think they bring you past the veil.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think it's a drug high. I think they alter your perception to a place, to a position, if you can think of perception being positionable. It alters your perception to a position that is always there, always accessible, but is normally not. And it's sort of just like somebody saying like, hey, look over there. Do you see that thing? And if you had not been previously looking at it, you might not have seen it. But all of a sudden someone adjusts your perception and says, look at that.
Yes.
And lo and behold, a thing in a tree that you were standing next to that you hadn't even noticed, that's astonishing, for example. I do think that there's a degree of that going on. I think additionally, mushrooms are a personal growth tool, bar none. I think they're the single best remedy for depression, anxiety, disconnection, anger, so many things. In fact, I'd go so far as to say, done sufficiently, they'll make you vegan and free you from the cycle of eating karmic death.
Yes.
You can go down the road of mushrooms and only find good stuff so long as you do it in a gentle way like I'm talking about. They are a type of technology, I think. I think they're a fey technology, almost.
Oh, and I 100% agree with you. My relationship with mushrooms is a very personal, like, that is to say, before I trip, I'll sit with a mushroom, I'll meditate with it, and I'll find that mushroom's name. Because I think that they kind of have an intelligence of their own. And so, I've had one of my more recent trips, the mushroom's name was the Black Magician, and that was a fun trip. And I've had all kinds of names. There was one named Sydney, and it ranges, but, that kind of ties nicely into the fairy dance that I got invited to, because I'm still invited to it. And I know that that fairy dance is going to happen while I am tripping, and the mushroom's name is going to be the Mushroom Queen, but she has not summoned me yet. I'm not ready for that.
It's very interesting, if I may. Maybe other than G, my guess from A Hint of Hellfire, and he's using the word summon in a totally different context than you are. You, when you talk about summoning things and you have this type of retrospective and precognitive knowledge around yourself, I think it's very cool to talk to somebody who's got that type of self-awareness happening. I have some weird stuff that's taking place as I unpack my life through the lens of this Fae journey, not the least of which is a real curiosity around some of the stuff that has felt precognitive in my life as well. And for those not privileged enough to live in a place where they can take mushrooms or have access to mushrooms, even so far as to be, like, Colorado is pretty good. You have progressive laws and infrastructure there. So do I here in BC, British Columbia, Canada. We're two lucky ducks.
Yes.
No one's going to kick down our door for smoking a joint or having a big old fat mushroom in our hand.
Absolutely.
But believe it or not, I mean, I have listeners from Ghana for this show, a good number of them.
Wow.
And they don't have that kind of privilege. So sorry about that, folks listening. And thank you for listening all the way over there on your, spotty electricity and internet just to hear my show. That's really cool of you. I wondered about that, and I'll just wonder out loud for a second here. If you are one of those listeners, shoot me an email and let me know what's up with the 2% of audience in Ghana, which is about 40 people, give or take. So what are you all listening for and why? Is there a fairy subculture in Ghana, or are there fairies in Ghana in lore? I wonder what's going on. I'll have to do some research. But anyway, mushrooms are a real type of technological interface with nature, and therefore with the Fae, because the Fae are of the earth.
Yes.
And I believe that humans are, all of us, even the son of a bitches who fucking are human trafficking children right now, even those motherfuckers have it in them to transform, redeem, move towards a better existence. Everyone is redeemable. I do believe that. And I think that the lesson of the Fae is one of magic paired with patience. And it's like you said earlier, like a remembering and a welcome back.
Yes.
Both very profound statements, Drake, I would say. Those are both very standout things that you've said. Thanks for all the things you've said tonight, especially and not limited to thanks for being brave enough to talk openly about mushrooms in a non-cringy way with me, because this is an important part of this discussion. When I say it's a Fae tech, I always, hesitate. I'm not saying you're going to see a fairy or make contact with fairies through mushrooms. It's not like that necessarily, though it may well. That's also true too. So, I don't make any promises, but I also don't want to set false expectations. So it's somewhere in the middle. But the truth of it to me, and I'll hand this off to you here after I say what I think the truth is about mushrooms in a more succinct way, and then I want to hear what you think and then I have some more questions about this music. It's kind of like the rhizome, which is the type of intelligence I believe you're referring to. Like, mushrooms do have an interconnectivity, not just with themselves, but with everything adjacent. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of like I have one mushroom variety called the Golden Teacher, which I grow. Mm-hmm. Which I have. But I have grown a little bit of mushrooms in those mycological jars and inoculating the jars, the mason jar style. I have done that. Back in the day, those didn't really have brand names, quote unquote. But my preferred psilocybin mushroom variety is the Golden Teacher variety. I like that a lot. It's quite good. That's what I microdose on to help manage pain in conjunction with my cannabis use. And if you knew how much pain I was actually in, you'd be astonished how much I do without, what the doctors are trying to give me, which is a lot of opioids and benzos, unfortunately. So, there's a path through that tech to closer contact with nature whereby you actually see like plants breathing. Have you seen that before where you see the foliage breathing effectively?
Yeah, so one of my most recent trip, actually, it was a low dose trip, but I had needed what it was essentially a nature bath. And so I was like, all right, this week's been shit, and I just need to decompress from everything and get all that negative energy washed away. And, I was seeing all kinds of fae in the air, and like you said, the trees were breathing, and I could even see like eyes inside the trees, and they were looking at me and waving at me. I think there's all kinds of intelligence in nature.
Bingo. Ents, like from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, those are real creatures.
Absolutely.
They're fully real, and I have been into the deep woods among some of these massive 1,200 to 2,000 year old trees. I've been up on them, next to them. They cannot be described as anything other than alive in the way that they're being depicted in The Lord of the Rings. I think that there's kind of like, this is an interesting thought I keep rolling around in my head, and I wonder what you think about it. I feel like Earth, from the human perspective, the 3D, day-to-day, stoplights and cars, taxes and television, that kind of Earth, right?
Yeah.
Is almost, not just figuratively, but it is almost literally stuck in a kind of like non-animated stuckness. And when you take the mushrooms, or when you, for instance, like meditate for long periods of time, or other practices that are analogous to a mushroom trip in terms of the impact on the brain's chemistry, when you do those things, you unstick yourself and you get to see the incredibly alive and animistic real world. And so this concept of the veil that keeps coming up in Fae, I do think that when you take mushrooms, you see past it. And I think the veil is real. And I think that most, if not all, living things are deeply alive and intelligent and aware, like you're saying, Drake. That's why I'm vegan, because I don't want to eat my contemporaries, basically.
I totally understand. And something big that, because it's not just psilocybin mushrooms, I've been doing a lot of research into all kinds of mushrooms. And something that I've noticed is, my mycelium itself is literally everywhere. And, there are studies that I've read where the trees will use the mycelium to communicate with each other, and even more distinctly communicate with their offspring, saplings that have grown from off of one tree. They'll use the mycelium to communicate with each other about, well, whatever trees communicate about.
They communicate about a lot, in fact.
Yes.
And their photosynthetic capabilities of taking photons of light is propelled by quantum superpositioning of particles, in their multi positions at once, like basically magic. Trees are conducting magic every single moment that you look at them. They are taking a particle of light and forcing it to go into a billion places at once. Can you do that? And so what are they talking about? Oh, I don't know. Everything, the nature of the galaxy, time, the universe. They've been here longer and are more valuable to the earth than we are. That's for sure. The plants are, I'm saying. But, not to deride human beings, we're pretty great too. Like I said, we need a lot of redemption. we need a lot of remembering to take away from what you've been saying, and I do really agree with you. This isn't new ground, I don't think. I think it's old ground, actually.
Nah, so I think what I was trying to get at there is just mushrooms are all about communication, and you see it just pretty much on every level. Mushrooms are about communication and healing. Magic mushrooms will help heal the soul, and penicillin and other medicinal mushrooms, and just more effectively being able to communicate with everything around us, what we see and what we cannot see.
They're interesting how they're represented in a destructive format in the mushroom cloud, as well as in this format of like the interconnected teacher, which is there's something there.
Mushrooms are the duality between life and death.
They truly are, and the way they grow anaerobically is also very liminal in its way. Anyway, for the audience listening, get your hands on some high quality mushrooms if you can. Take them in a natural environment with people that you love and trust, preferably at least one of them sober who's looking out for the crew, and take them little by little with this intent of some type. Don't just kick them back and play Mario Kart in your 6th floor apartment in an urban environment. Please don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun too somehow, but just don't. Just don't.
Yes, it's so much deeper to just trip out in the wild.
Use the technology in its appropriate setting like you would any other tech, and see what happens. No promises, but I like talking about it because it's true. And I don't think it discredits a person to say this stuff that we're talking about mushrooms and other drugs. I don't think it does. I think it's far more credible and sobering and relaxing topic matter than listening to people talk about dropping bombs on one another. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can I ask about this music some more?
Absolutely.
Man, this is such an interesting thing for me. Auditory stuff with the Fae is an interesting thing for me. I heard my fairy's wings. It was unbelievable sounding. And the way that I try to describe it is it sounded like a winged animal, but unlike any other winged animal. You did something really interesting there when you said it was like the concept of an instrument.
Yes.
I could almost borrow that and say the wings of my Fae sounded like a harmonic concept blend of a hummingbird, dragonfly, and a bee, but way, way louder than any of those things, and a harmonic blend of all three of them, which doesn't exist in life. So what the hell is that? It's like a concept of a winged animal on full volume.
Feels like the concept of flight.
It was also, in part, this fairy was illuminated purple that I saw. You'll hear the full details when you listen to me tell it to Claire from the Fairy Whispering podcast. Shout out to Claire's awesome show. But yeah, it was all that and a bag of chips. So I know what it's like to hear the Fae, at least partially, and from that context alone. And even that sound of just it flying up to me and then away from me, I'll never ever forget. So when you're driving up this way to your place, it sounds like you're kind of out and away from other people, which makes me wonder where that car was coming from, honking like that. But about how far are you away from other people on this drive home? I'm just kind of curious, how many people are around, if there could have been a source of the sound. I'm just curious if that's something that, I know you got out and everything, but let's just start back at where you are, and would there be a logical way for this sound to be elsewhere? Just curious.
I'm in town right now. I'm not actually up on the mountain. So that's why there's cars driving all around. But out in the mountain, it is, there's not a lot of people. It's, homesteading basically. And it's about 20 miles away from where I'm at right now. So.
Gotcha. So when you were driving and you started to hear this music on your way home that day, and this is again when you're back out in the homesteading areas where this happened. I just want to make sure I got that correct.
Yes.
Okay, I like to make sure I was listening correctly from time to time. So yeah, you're describing it as though it was perplexing first from, my car's not playing this, my phone's not playing this. At what point was I guess here's my question. So when you stopped to get out to listen for it, was that because the volume was such that you're like, well, this isn't coming from somewhere inside? Was that why you decided to stop and get out? Because it definitely sounded like it was outside of the vehicle?
Yes, that's exactly what it was like. And I thought like maybe there was something caught in my car wheel that was making like a grinding noise or something, but nope. And it's like when I stepped out the door, the music did get a little louder. And it wasn't coming from anywhere in particular. It was just kind of omnipresent.
That's also very interesting. It's interesting that, again, not to talk about my own encounter too much, when I heard my fairy, it was a real sound because it traveled in corresponding auditory motion to the physical motion of the fairy, meaning it sounded farther away when it was farther away. It got louder as it got closer. You're describing opening the door and then being able to hear it better, which is also, indicative of it's a real sound, not a sound in your head, is what I'm trying to say. The day after, I asked another person who lives in the Bay, did you hear that roaring helicopter last night moving really fast through the Bay? I asked Dave, this guy who lives in a boat that was anchored not far from me. He was asleep, so he was like, no. But I was convinced he must, it was so loud to me that I was convinced it must have been heard by others. And so I do believe that they actually do make real noise. I believe that they actually move real objects. I think that there's an element to the Fae that is third dimensional and is touching us. Do you think that the music that you were hearing was that way? Like it was, others might have been able to hear it had they been with you type of thing? I'm just curious.
I think so. And also I don't. It's like, how do I put it? I think it's just because of all of those steps that I was telling you about: personal growth, moving to Colorado, growing the mushrooms. It was those steps seemed to invite that into my life and expand my senses. And I feel like that's why I was able to hear it, but it also did very much sound like it was in the real world. And if, you were to really focus, you could hear it.
It's an important distinction that we're both hovering around because it is in the real world. And the real world is just out of reach from the world we're stuck in, is how I kind of feel most days.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you completely.
Kind of a bummer being a sensitive human man stuck on this side of Earth. Vale. Yep.
Especially with this apparent kinship that I have with the Fae. Like I said, it was like family.
When I felt my Fae, because I did feel it, it was super uplifting. And even now when I walked around the corner and I just couldn't believe the fact that there's two French girls where the bleeding guy should be, it was on some level not scary or anything. It did feel like a kind of affirmation, confirmation, initiation, rich, I don't know, pick an Asian word.
Yes.
one of them felt like one of them a little bit.
I understand.
I do feel like they're kind of like, this might sound weird, and I'll go right back to what you said, not to sound bigger than I am or try to make myself sound bigger than I am. I think these Fae have my fucking number. I think they got me clocked and locked Like, they've had me under surveillance. They know when I go for my coffee, I'm fucked. Like, they've got the case built against me. They've got me on camera doing shit that they can, like, I just feel like they've got me where they want me. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to actually have me on camera doing bad shit. I'm a pure soul, but you get the idea. They got me where they want me. And I'm like, I'm kind of okay with that. And so, although that was an upsetting thing to have that guy at my door, truly, and you can hear me upset, I feel way calmer about it now in context of this conversation. And like, just to kind of build on what you just answered about the music being there, but also you're kind of not sure. I mean, I did ask that guy, my neighbor, who is only about 50 feet to my left, did you just see that guy right now? And he was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm talking to these French girls. But that motherfucker's on mic. So, you know, the Fae can definitely get captured by your camera in one way or the other, intentionally or otherwise. And they can also get captured by your mic. And I really, you know, I'm not going to press for too many melodic or harmonic details about music, because describing that without trying to hum it is going to be impossible.
Oh yeah. I don't think that I could. Don't think that I could replicate that sound, just because it was so abstract. The concept of an instrument. How do you even begin to replicate that?
That's part of the reason I'm not even going to ask, is because I think you did a great job initially painting a picture of what it may sound like. But I did want to say, I believe you, and I'm really kind of envious that you've gotten to hear that, because I have heard from others, none that have been brave enough to come on the show, that have heard Fae music before. And I really applaud you for having the bravery to come and talk about it, because, I mean, let's just break this down. Talking about fairies is going to get you laughed at. Saying you heard the fairies playing music for you is going to line you up for the firing squad. So bravery is definitely emanating from your side of the mic. And I don't mean to joke. I'm just playing, you know, inevitable devil's advocate and giving voice to the other side, which I do get subjected to, and other guests have been subjected to when talking about Fae. It's not always love and happiness. Some people just think you're totally a Looney Tunes, or like some sort of attention-hungry faker slash dweeb. Just sort of like just some sort of shrivelly, sniveling little fairy something or other. I don't know what people actually think, because I'm like, I kind of was one of them, and now I'm like, no, these entities are real. They're so real. They're hyper intelligent. They're so sophisticated. They can alter reality. They can shapeshift. Time has no meaning to them. And furthermore, they can be in communication with you in profound ways. And I really do feel that when you're talking about that motion from music hearing, the sensation of family, into the type of direct communication you're describing. I would encourage you to continue to lean into this journey that you're on, my friend, not less.
Oh, I am doing nothing but leaning into this journey, and it's just a part of myself that I am so happy to have back. And you know, I appreciate you saying that I'm being brave, but I just feel like it needs to get out there, because it's right in front of my face, and it's a part of me. It's a part of my identity, and I have a wonderful group of people that completely understand my perspective, and that's why it doesn't necessarily feel like I'm being brave, so to say, but advocating for, like, these things are real, and we can communicate with them, and we have so much to learn from them.
You know, I'll just finish and move towards the conclusion of this conversation in a gentle way by saying the following things. Not to get all like paternal on you, but as the guy talking to you who's basically double your age, more or less, I think you said you're 22, I'm 45. Go forth with my encouragement to lean into it with the same breath, kind of containing the thought. Remember to floss your teeth. Remember to stay up on those taxes. Do things intelligent with money. Make your plays. There is a real world that you are going to have to navigate, and don't let yourself get too bedazzled by the wonder of it all and forget about that stuff. So I say that not just for you, as you might gather, but for everyone listening. My responsibility to this audience grows each time I put out an episode, as it were, both in size and in content. I just feel like I care about everybody, and I want to make sure we're all playing safe as we play with perception and as we can contemplate these rememberings. I think is a great way to put it. You talked about some beautiful things the Fae have to teach and show us a second ago, so that'll let me ask you this next question, which is coming. I do ask everybody who comes on the show this question, and there's no right answer or wrong answer, because to my knowledge, no one has a fairy in their basement on study. Hopefully not. Basement wouldn't hold them anyway. But the question is pretty simple, but a big one. I mean, okay, so they're playing music. I'm seeing them. They're stealing stuff from Bob over here. They're moving objects over here on Sue. What do you think that fairies are?
So I think fairies are nature spirits, but nature spirits aren't necessarily fairies. And what I mean by that is I think that fairies are primordial spirits of the wilderness, the wild, the unknown, the uncertain, transformation, just, what is there to explore? What's hidden beyond the veil? And so they do have this deep tie to nature, but that not necessarily all nature spirits represents that wild, the wilderness, like the Fae do.
I think that's a really great answer, and I'm right there with you on that distinction. I think if you're trying to draw a circle around the word Fae, it's going to include a lot, but it also at the same time doesn't necessarily mean that everything in that circle is also included. It's truly on that line. Because I do think there's some more like overarching, less personally articulated energetic forces, is how I would maybe call them. Like that would be like a nature spirit, just to kind of agree with you. But I've definitely encountered things that are like Bob the Fae, and he is definitely Bob, and he's not a nature spirit. He's Bob the gnome,
yes.
So, but both of those things truly do fit into the repertoire, to use the word, of Fae, which is part of the reason I think I enjoy hosting this show, because the question of what is a fairy is about as varied as literally every episode of this show, of which I don't think there's been truly, one that's identical to the other. So, thank you for that answer. I really appreciate that. Just take a moment and contemplate your final thoughts as I do a little bit of housekeeping here, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
So for the audience listening, big thanks tonight to Drake from Colorado for talking to me and to us about his near-death experience as a child, his conjuring of a frog-type spirit. And just before I let you go, you're going to really like listening to Lapis's episode about the Banshee, in which a frog makes an appearance. Also, Jem's episode Ring Ring Gnome's Home with the famous returned wedding ring I alluded to earlier also has an interdimensional frog. So something to pique your attention, and for the listeners who haven't gotten that far. This is all part of housekeeping actually here. But anyway, this is all to say that there's a lot of tie-ins to the show, and again tonight, I do think that coming on the show has a better than average chance of producing some very interesting Fae activity. So if you'd like to feel what that's like and come on the show, you know, join into the bravery on display here by Drake tonight with a little bit of your own, the email address to reach me is encounters@fascinatingfae. The website, fascinatingfae.com, totally free, lots of cool links, pictures that the guests refer to, stuff like that. Nothing for sale, just fun additional information to go along with the show. And that's why you might want to head over there. And I'll just finish by saying that if you do want to be with me on socials, I probably show up most on Facebook, and all the socials are at Fascinating Fae as well. So, you know, that's something podcasters have to do. Thanks for letting me do that, Drake. It wouldn't be a Fascinating Fae episode unless I said the following things, which is that on behalf of all of the human and non-human listeners tuning into Fascinating Fae tonight, super big thanks to our friend from Colorado, Drake. Again, thanks for being here. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. And the last word, after all your patience while I clean house, is now yours tonight. Take it away, my friend.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, and thank you so much for hosting this show. I think that tonight was a really good example of the magic that this show can produce. And just between, you know, the faceless guy at your door and the kitties that have been playing around here, and just the Fae are watching and they are listening, and it's definitely worth it to come onto the show.
If I could see what the eagles saw when they circled my mother on the day I was born. As she walked by the creek, it was a labor of love. I give thanks to my family for raising me right as they did. Now I'm grown and I'm ready to fly, like the eagle glides so close to Creator, sits on the top of my totem and watches me go. And if I could speak to the spirit in me just a little more often, then maybe I'd see that the spark of the source exists in the breath that we breathe in the trees, and in each of the leaves there's a pattern that's perfect. The fractals emerging, the codes of creation, and in this vibration we walk around aimlessly, hungry to know the divine. First there was light, and then there was dark. Then there was light, and then there was dark. First there was light, and then there was dark. Then there was light, and then there was dark. And if I could walk where the ancients rode, on the backs of their horses they galloped in droves, and the armies of darkness collide and explode, and they fight to the death till they capture the throne. In the wake of the battle came music and poems. Art and invention changed all that we know, and humanity rose to the next episode on the line. First there was light, and then there was dark. First there was light, and then there was dark. Then there was light, and then there was dark. First there was light, and then there was dark.